Code Commit. With the help of this service, you can store your code on cloud AWS. Okay, so usually what happens in the on-premises offices, assume that there are multiple developers working on one project. So what they do, those developers will all store their code in one of the centralized server. Okay, so there are some softwares that are installed on the centralized server, like for example SVN or Git. SVN stands for Subversion. Okay, now the benefits of these softwares are, assume that you have stored some file. Okay, so if you have made changes on that particular file, you can store it with different version number. Okay, you can store the same file again and again with different changes, okay, on this centralized server. So for each and every change that you do, the central server will store it with different version, like version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, and so on. Now on the centralized server, how they store is, first they create repositories. On the repository they store their code. That's the reason even you can call this centralized server which stores the code as repo servers. This is like an alias name for that centralized servers where you store the code. Okay, repo servers, repository servers. Okay, because there we create the repositories, and on the repositories you store the code. Now with our AWS Code Commit service, it is similar. You create the repositories and you store your code on this repository. For that, all you need is, on your laptop, or I mean the developer's laptop where he wants to store the code on our AWS, he has to install AWS CLI, command line interface, AWS command line interface software. Okay, and he has to install Git client, because on the backends Amazon has developed this code commit service and he is using on the backend Git servers on his data centers. Git servers, it means on his servers he installed a software called Git. Okay, for connecting to Git you need a Git client. And why this AWS CLI means, it adds an extra AWS commands to your native Windows commands, so that your Windows can communicate with AWS. Okay, now if you want to call from your Windows command line, if you want to call AWS service, that can be done via CLI, right? Command line you are using. So for that, your Windows should capable enough to understand the AWS commands. That's the reason you install this package, so that it adds an extra commands to your native operating system commands. Now Git client is for communicating with the code commit. AWS CLI is for authenticating and understanding with AWS, mainly authenticate. So before doing this, you need to have an IAM user, okay, with full permissions on code commit. Okay, and the IAM user should have created access key and secret key. So what you do is, you take that access key and secret key of the IAM user and you configure it in the AWS CLI software, so that this AWS CLI software will use this IAM user's access key and secret key, and then it will authenticate into AWS. After authenticating into AWS, now this Git client can communicate with the Git service, I mean the code commit service of AWS. It's like whoever has the AWS CLI software, they cannot authenticate into AWS environment, right? For them, they need the right user credentials with right policies on the services for which they were trying to communicate. They instance here the computer. So right credentials with right policies for that I am user, what whose are credentials you configured on AWS CLI. We'll see this. First, we'll create an IAM. Click on IAM, and this is a regional service. Code Commit is a regional service, and this IAM is a global service for your entire account. Okay, click on users. You'll create another user. Add user. Username. And we all required is programmatical access, AWS CLI access. Okay, the access key and secret key, not console access for this user. Do you want to add this user to any group? No, just leave it. Do you want to copy any permissions from the existing users to this user? No. We'll create a new policies for this. I mean, we'll search this AWS code commit policies. Code commit. Here you can see there are three policies that are designed by Amazon for this code commit. One is AWS Code Commit full access, read-only access, and power user access. So we'll require full access. I'll select this. Now I have created a user. Okay, AWS class with code commit full access permissions, and you can see the access key and secret key. Okay, store this access key and secret key. Now you have the access key and secret key. What is the second step? We need to install. Sorry, we need to create an code commit repository, right? I'll go back to console. Now right now connected to Virginia region. Let me switch to Mumbai. Here you can see the code commit. Okay, that's the reason when you keep cursor here saying store code in private Git repositories, because on the backend Amazon is using Git repositories, Git servers. Now you can create what these 3 points mean is you can create your repository, you can connect your repository, and you can share that repository, I mean the code, with different users. That's what, right? Not only one developer works on that central repository, many people works. That's what this means. Get started. Now repository name, I'll name it as AWS class, or I'll name it as repo. uh, Now we created the repository AWS class repo. Now along with this, what Amazon is offering is he's offering us and notification services. So whenever somebody commits a new change on that repository, or whenever somebody does any version change, pull, so if you want to get notified, that can be done with the help of this SNS service. So event types, pull request. So whenever somebody pull code, okay, so if you want to get notified to someone, if yes, check mark this, if no, just leave it. So whenever somebody commits code, do you want to get notified? If yes, check mark this and select that particular topic, and whoever the subscribers are attached to this topic, they'll get the notification saying that, hey, this day so and so time, this guy has committed some thing to your, some code to your SVN server. For this scenario, I'll just skip this notification. Now here two ways you can communicate with AWS. One is through HTTPS connection type and through SSH. Okay, SSH uses secure shell for authentication into that, and it will connect to that repository. Here HTTPS uses the hypertext transfer protocol in a secure way to connect. Now whatever it is, either HTTPS or SSH, here there are some prerequisites required. One is install Git on your system, okay, and the other is he's saying AWS CLI has to be installed, and you have to configure that IAM users to that AWS CLI. Your SSH also same. For that, Windows or Linux, if it is Windows, install Git, and you need to install AWS CLI, and you have to configure it. And for authenticating, you need to have SSH keygen software. So in our scenario, we'll connect to this repository with HTTPS protocol, and one will see. For that, I need a Git software, right? Let me see whether there is a Git software in my system or not. Already Git is installed. Let me uninstall and let me install it fresh, because while installing the Git client in our system, we need to do some changes. We'll see. Now I am uninstalling my Git client software that is in my system. In the meantime, let me see whether AWS CLI is installed on my system or not. For that, I'll open my command prompt, and here I'll type AWS CLI -v. No, AWS CLI is also not installed on my system. I have to install AWS CLI too. Yeah, that is already installed, right?
Before version give double dash will
Mm, yeah, it is already installed. Mhm. Hmm. Now it is saying the particular version number, what is that, and everything. Now for this AWS CLI, which IAM user is configured, that we have to see. Something access key and secret key is already configured that ends with IIPQ but we have to configure our own, right? So let me configure our usernames, access key, and secret key. Copy this, paste it here, and secret key. Copy the secret key. And default region, let it be AP South Mumbai. AP South -1 means Mumbai. And output format, table. There are three output formats you can see. One is table, plain text, other is JSON. If you want to change, you can change here something like JSON, click just JSON. Now you can see it will stay. Output format is changed. Okay, we had AWS CLI installed on our system, and we have configured AWS CLI access key and secret key. Now let's see. We install Git. So there are some changes that we need to follow, particularly while installing this Git, if it wants to communicate with AWS. I'll tell you. I think I had this piece of software in my downloads. Git. Yeah, here it is. Here you have to uncheck mark this enable Git Credential Manager. Okay, because we are using AWS Credentials Manager for authenticating this Git into AWS. That's the reason we don't require by default Git's Credential Manager for controlling. So uncheck mark this and then install. Credentials Manager, something that manages the credentials. Here our AWS CLI is doing that. Now we have created a repository and the repository is empty, right? Now we have to commit some code to that repository. Before that, how do we do that is usually you have to clone that repository to one of your folder on your system. Okay, now whatever that will be in the repository will be cloned on your systems folder. For that you need to create one folder. What I am doing is I will clone this on my D folder. I'll create a folder on D saying that code, and it's installed. I'll go to command prompt. I'll switch to D. How do we switch to what is that here? CD capital D only, no?
Yeah, Karthik, CD D colon.
D colon.
That's
D
it.
colon. Yeah.
Just D colon.
Just D colon. Okay.
No, CD is not required.
D colon. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here CD is required. Okay. Now we are in the code directory with this command line, Windows command line. Here we have to run this command. git clone. So what exactly this command is doing is it is calling git client and it is trying to clone this particular URL https is to /c. You are communicating with our AWS class repository with the https protocol on this code folder. I think we need to restart this AWS CLI because after that we install Git. Now it is cloning. The entire AWS class repository is cloning to this directory. Here you can see it is cloned. It created a .git hidden file and created a folder with AWS class repo. See, it just gave a warning message, hey, you appear to have cloned an empty repository. Now we'll see how do we commit some code to our AWS repo the same way that you do use the git commands. AWS Code Commit Documentation. For every service, you'll find a similar kind of documentations. These documentations are like Bible guides to us. Even we have any doubts, we'll just go through this documentation. Control F. First commit. Okay, here let me add some file. Let me say the developers are adding some code. I'll add some file, a text file with any name like first file with some data. Now right click for doing this. Git add. What is that file name? Sorry, you have to switch to AWS class repo. Now here git add first file. Now we have added this first file to our workspace AWS code commit. AWS class repo. Okay, on our local system we have added this. If you create that file, it doesn't mean that you added that file to your workspace. You have to add it by executing this command git add. And the second command, after adding that particular file, you have to commit this to. For that, git commit -m and the file name. So you created one commit. Now you have to push that. Okay. This command will also create a master called your origin called master. Now we'll see. It is should be created. If you click on it, is now it is not empty. We have pushed some command commit, right? See here you can see that first file. Okay, for this code Amazon is providing a beautiful visualizer. Okay, from this here you can see whenever the commits has been made and what exactly. This is how it looks. AWS Code Commit Visual. This is how you can see who committed, when committed, what any description that have given for that commit and the commit ID, everything. This is how you can see the visualizer of different commits made on that particular thing. Right now I don't have any that much commits, right? And well, when it's with the developer, the real code, you'll find some hundreds and thousands of commits. A master branch is already created. So this is how you store your code on our AWS Code Commit repository. And if you want to pull this code, just tell your friend to configure the same way. Install the AWS CLI and configure the IAM user of his secret key and access key. Okay, and he can clone this repository and he can work out with this repository on his local workspace also on his system. This is how multiple developers can commit and they can store the code with our AWS. Any doubts on this topic, guys? You have? You can see first file is committed by Karthik 3 minutes ago.
Do the developers have access to the visualizer, or they can just see the files on their local?
No, everything they can access this visualizer. If they wants to have the access to the visualizer on AWS IAM user, while you are creating, you have just created a programmatical access, right? Secret
Yes.
key and access key. If you have given the console access to them, then yeah, definitely they can even log into the console and they can see this. Usually what happens, developers, they don't give any this console access, AWS console access, nothing. The Steam lead or those guys will have the console access so that they'll see that visualizer who has committed when and everything, and they can compare each and every things before and things, and they can see the changes what has made.
So, is there any concept of checkout kind of thing?
Mhm. 1 second, guys. 1 second. Just 1 second. Yeah, you're saying something that.
So, is there any concept of checkout kind of thing? Because if multiple developers are working on the code, they can't all edit the code at the same time, right?
Pardon, we didn't get you. Is there
So,
any concept of?
okay, so take an example of clear case. So, clear case, if one developer checks out the code, none of the other developers can edit it.
Everything there are whatever the Git concepts, Git push, pull, clear, change, rip, everything can be done with this our AWS Code Commit also, because on the backend it uses Git servers, but there is no visualizer. You'll have that. The concepts are there. Everything that you need to do is through command line only.
Okay.
Basically, what happens on on-premises servers, you will install the Git server. Git server will have a beautiful visualizer that can you can access from your browser and you can see that.
Yes.
But here, no. That's the reason we are giving our own visualizer to you. Okay. But conflict resolvers, everything you have to do it from commands only. Any other doubts, guys? This is how you create and delete the repository. Once you delete the repository, your code is gone. Okay.
Can we back up the repository? Like in Glacier service, can we? So, for example, if we are doing a project and and the project is done, but I want to back up the repository to the repository. Can I do that?
Yeah, that can be done. You can back up your entire source code. So what you can do is you clone, okay, and you make an zip of that and you push it to Glacier. From here directly from code commit, you cannot back up to Glacier. That you have to do it manually.
Okay.
On the back end, unless you delete this code commit wantedly, the repository cannot delete. Okay, because Amazon uses multiple servers for maintaining your code. Okay, if you delete it, so it's your intention of you don't require your repository, right? That's the reason Amazon will delete it on the back end. But make sure that you back up the code by cloning everything and zipping it into one file and storing it on AWS S3 or Glacier. It's up to you. Okay guys, that's it for today's class, and we'll meet up tomorrow with new concept code build. Okay, with the help of code build, you make a build files. We'll see it on tomorrow. Tomorrow, I mean the next class on Monday. Okay, and in the meantime, I'll share you all these videos to you. Thank you.